Thanks so much for coming along to live streaming quarantine tonight. It's awesome to see so many of you virtually rocking up on my screen. It's a little bit different to what we're all used to. My name is Ash Bartlett. I'm the Professional Development Manager at Music Victoria, and I'll be facilitating the chat tonight with the awesome speakers that we have lined up for you. Firstly, though, I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands in which we're all respectively meeting on tonight virtually. I'm on Wurundjeri land of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present, and give a warm welcome to any First Peoples that are with us tonight. So, bit of housekeeping how this will all run. You're all on mute, I'm sorry, but you're welcome to send through your thoughts in the chat function on the right-hand side here. Our speakers will have the floor of audio. And on the virtual panel, we have a powerhouse of experience and insight into the new normal of live streaming that we all find ourselves in. We have Leigh Treweek of Delivered Live, also known as the owner of the music, street press and handshake management. Want to give us a wave, Leigh?
Hello, everyone.
And we have the wonderful artist Ali Barter, Steve Hibberd, the owner of Small Time Studio, and Dom Alessio, music export producer at Sounds Australia, former Triple J presenter on Home and Hosed, and Amy Donald from APRA AMCOS. Cool. So, Leigh, maybe we'll start with you. Could you give us a bit of background into yourself and also the concept of Delivered Live?
Yeah, so basically I own, with my brother, own the music, which is obviously the website, the magazine, and we also have a management company, Handshake Management, where we represent artists like Leigh, Wax, Elfresh the Lion, Pilgrims Vacations, who have a great new single out today. Jump off here and go and have a listen to that. And Ash Hendricks and other artists. Obviously, when the COVID crisis hit, our media industry with 17 staff and 100 freelance writer was decimated within a week of knowing exactly. We sort of had some insight into what was going to happen with regard to. We've been speaking to some people overseas. My wife and I have a son that's got an autoimmune disease, so we were sort of quick to take him out of school and got a sense for what might happen and saw the changing of it, cancelling. For all of our artists, we cancelled a total of, I think it was 77 gigs locally and across the world. And with that, we realised that to be able to keep our company going, we had to pivot. So funnily enough, we'd had a call from a person within government asking about Alex playing a regional festival not long before. And they contacted myself saying, we're thinking of doing this as a streaming event. 24 hours prior to that, at about late at night, my brother and I had come up with a concept for a streaming show to try and recreate the gig economy online and I guess help educate people while doing a great show, but also educate people on just how many industries benefit from the live gig community. So it's not just the artist itself, it's the manager, the agent, the venue, the crew, the media surrounding it that's advertising, the pole poster company and rock poster company. There's so many industries that are affected by this. And one of the greatest things about our Australian artists is that they're always there and they're always willing to do things and give up their time for free, especially around the bushfire crisis. We ran, for my artists alone, we ran 4 different events to raise money. And here was a time where our creative industries was hit, and how are they going to do anything? So we saw that a lot of artists were doing things online and streaming, but we thought we needed to create something where the artists were actually going to get paid. So we spoke to government, and then through the help of the lovely Steve Hibberd, who's there from Small Time TV, who I'd only recently met weeks before, but saw what he was doing and thought, okay, we can create something here and we can do something potentially in a venue. That then obviously was put and to rest when the government restricted things a bit further. So through being in the industry for a long time and hopefully having a pretty good reputation, my brother and I went to some sort of large people within the industry and said, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Friends that own Harry the Horrors came to us and offered to build a purpose-built studio and create a space where we could do the event, create a live streaming event safely where artists could play, play a show in full performance mode. They could choose to play solo, but also full band, amplified. And we felt like for us, some of the artists that we deal with, that was really necessary to give them an opportunity to play and play and actually feel like there's still connection. It's still a connection there to their art form. We also wanted to make it that it was a ticketed event, that people could watch it for free, because we know so many people are doing it hard out there. But for those that were okay, that they could actually buy a ticket. We also wanted to make sure that although we can only use the same crew every week and we're limited to the amount of people that can be involved in the event, and we have to use those same people every week so we know where they've been for the safety of everybody involved, that they could also, the artist could nominate a venue of their choice and a crew member of their choice to also receive money to ensure that we could get money out to as many creative people as possible. From that, we've also built a website for both the delivered live concept, but also for the part funders, which is the regional development for Victoria. We have the Minister Symes, who's given us the money. We've also built a website called Recharge Vic, which is helping regional Victoria promote themselves and get ready for when this finishes. And from that, it means that we've allowed, it's over the last 2 weeks, we've paid over 90 people within the creative industries money that's, helped pay rent, helped keep them going. And also, I think, helping educate everyone that, this is going to be a really tough time. This is not going to be a short process. There's a very fair chance that there will be no international travel until mid next year. The ability to be able to tour is going to be very difficult. That we could keep that front of mind for people, that, our creative industries, our artists and that are always there, and they are always giving up their time for free and making you feel better. But also they're struggling at the moment, and they for a lot of them, they need money. For our crew members, it's, the money stopped immediately, but also too, a lot of our crew people have, been in that industry for a long time. It's not something that they can turn around and do something else. So, yeah, we really wanted to concentrate on trying to fill a void there. We're not saving the world by any stretch, but, it's been really great to see, last week, one of the front of house people that we paid was like, this has paid my rent for this week. And he was quite emotional about being able to do that and to have that, and to know that there were other people out there that cared enough to buy a ticket knowing that money was going to a group of people, and that the artists themselves were also putting up their hand to make sure that those close to them that work with them were getting paid as well. So it's been a learning curve. We've done about 2 seconds of TV prior to this. We're not like, I see the great Peter Bain Hogg there, who is a man that I respect very much, who's done a lot of it, but geez, what a very learning experience. I've never sweated so much than in last week's show, when we had an echo going at the start of the show, and it was only 2 minutes, but it felt like 2 hours. But I think the artists have had a really good time doing it. We've got the ability now that we've been part funded for another 10 or another 8 weeks now. And then, the crew and so forth will all be paid. My brother and I are taking a bit of a risk in becoming promoters for the first time, because we're going to have to sell tickets to make any money, but we feel it's necessary, and it's a good thing. And hopefully too. And again, I look down at the great Peter Bain Hogg, who we've been trying to pitch for some TV on some music on TV. That from this, we can also open the door potentially to do some other things through live streaming. There's for a lot of Australian artists at the end of this, it's going to be incredibly expensive to tour internationally. So, we're looking at trying to create a concept where we can geocode different areas and we can go on a virtual world tour from the safety of the studio to be able to do that. It's going to be we're going to have to do some things differently, and then hopefully also commercial TV, streaming TV, see that live music on TV has a place, and it's something that people enjoyed. Just to see the comments that have gone up over the last few weeks when artists have played and what it's meant to people, that we forget that, not everyone can get out to a gig. Not everyone, some people live remotely and can't access live music. And I think this is something that, we're hoping that Delivered Live maybe becomes a concept that we can continue after this and have it as an ongoing event, whether it's weekly or monthly, or that, to be able to showcase artists. We've had people watch it from over, I think it's up to 18 different countries now, watching each week. So, it's opened the door to those artists being seen internationally. And yeah, it's been an interesting little time, but it's something that's been able to save for us. It's been able to save, all of our staff are still employed. We haven't had to let anyone go. And we just hope that, that we're able to get through all of this with all of our staff intact, with jobs, and with all of the artists coming through, being able to earn enough to at least cover, a few months' rent.
That's unreal, Leigh. You've done such an amazing effort in supporting all the roles of the ecosystem in response to this crazy time. Do you feel like, Delivered Live has combined music and comedy? Do you feel like the beauty of it is the variety show aspect, and do you feel like it's influenced by the good old days of recovery and countdown and the like?
I think it's got a bit of that. I think it's got a bit of Hey It's Saturday in it. It's got a bit of, a little bit of everything. I think Henry Wagons, if he doesn't get a job out of this, like Peter has had him in Spics and Specs, I think nearly every season they've gone on tour. He's an incredible performer. Having Miff Warhurst come in has been a godsend. Miff actually, started working for my brother and I 25 years ago at Impress. I think that, the team's good. That variety sort of came out of the fact that, we can't just put the camera on the stage and have, do the changeover of the bands. We need 25 minutes to set up the stage. So, we thought, the comedy was something that was really important to us as well. And again, this week we've got some great comedians. We'll have them each week. But then that variety side and that chat at the bar with artists, I think, I'm really disappointed that in that first week, Ali, we didn't have that, because I think you would have done that amazingly well, being able to sit down and just chat about things. I think is really good for people to see. And it, I think it's a big help. I don't know whether many of you watched last week's, but listening to Tim Rogers talk about, what he's going through was pretty amazing. I think live TV, for want of a better word, or live streaming. But yeah, I hope that comes back. I think there's, I'm an old white guy that still likes a bit of that, the old Hey At Saturdays and the glory days of that thing. I hope that we can do that and see that there's a place for it. There's obviously a place in America. They're doing variety shows and so forth, but I think there is something in it. So yeah, but it was really interesting putting it together, and we put it together quick. As I said, we're, with the help of the team that's around us, with Small TV, Harry, from my brother, and Heidi, and all of our sort of production team and Henry and that and Miff are coming in with different ideas each week. We hope will improve and it'll get better. But we're pretty happy so far.
Awesome stuff. And who do you have lined up for this weekend?
So this week, I'm going to give a lot. So this week was we've got Dadiri, we've got Kingswood, and we have Mick Thomas. We have Claire Hooper doing comedy and Sammy Shah coming back on it weekly. And then in the coming weeks, we've got Olympia, Vicar and Linda Bull, The Maze, hopefully watching now and that, and we'll be very excited. Sign on the dotted line tomorrow. Vera Blue. Illy Briggs is hopefully going to come on board out of Sydney. We're pitching to everybody and all the artists out there that would like to do it. We're open to everyone. We want to ensure that the lineups are diverse, that it's inclusive for everyone to be involved in and be as broad as we can. And be as broad as we can. We've sort of made a pitch that we have a sort of an up and coming artist, an established artist, and a sort of veteran of the industry that fills the bill for everyone, that that no one is forgotten in this way. We look for a regional Victorian artist each week as well. So, Yeah, we'll keep going. We've got 8 weeks to go, and we're trying to fill the bills now.
Nicely done. And Ali, you played the inaugural Delivered Live. What was your experience like?
God. Hello. Yes. It was great. Yes. I mean, it was just such a blessing to be asked to play a paid gig, and I was very lucky to get my band to come and play with me as well. So like, not only a gig for me, but a gig for the 3 other musicians that work so hard with me. And I'm an artist, so it's hard. This is a hard time, but for the session musos who rely on the artists to get the gigs, they are, really finding it tough as well. So that was like such a great thing. I was so pleased to be able to get them involved, and it was fun, and it, in a time where it feels really strange, and some days are up and some days are down, some days are whatever, but it was just so nice to be with people in the regulated space, and play music together. So it was a morale booster in so many ways.
Yeah, awesome. And did you have many tours planned for this year that you've had to postpone, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the middle of my very first American tour, and it was all just cancelled as it was happening. And I think I did about 5 shows of the 20 I was going to do. And so I just got flown straight back to Australia. I was in New York, and then I had some dates in the UK and Europe, and even in India. I was going to go and play in India, like just all. It was a dream year. So, but I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, you have responded to this with total agility. You've done a bunch of live streaming of your own direct to your audience on, your various social media channels. Can you tell us a bit about the initiatives you're doing?
Yes, well, every Friday I go live on Facebook, and that's just something that I actually organised with Facebook before this all went down. So it's actually quite convenient that I'm due to be there and have had to sort of like find things to do. It was a time where I was meant to be on the road in interesting places every week, and now I'm in my house every week, and I have to get really creative. So I've been doing that. I've been doing last night I hosted an open mic night on Instagram Live. So I put the word out, and all the songwriters sent me a video of their song, and I had five like emerging songwriters from who would go to an open mic night and sing their songs. And Hayley Mary came, and we talked about open mic nights, because like that's something, as an artist, it was so important for me to be able to go out when I was learning and go to a bar and hack out my songs and figure it out. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have got any experience, and so it was cool to be able to like give people a chance to put their songs out there, or keep performing in some way. And yeah, just doing stuff like that. Oscar and I wrote a song for my husband and I. Oscar Dawson wrote a song for Triple J. They asked us to write a song with a set list of topics as chosen by Triple J listeners. So we did that, and like that was fun. I think it brought a smile to people's faces. It was a pretty silly song, but people seemed to like it. So through that we raised some money for Support Act. So I don't know, I'm a doer. So like as soon as I'm stopped, I'm like drink coffee and then have 1,000 ideas. So I'm just doing that every day.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, it sounds like you're a natural at coming up with ideas. Would you give, what advice would you give to other artists to approach coming up with ideas for live streaming?
I mean, just like, it's hard and it's weird. So acknowledge that it's hard and it's weird, and just, because you're talking to nothing coming back at you. So just find things that you like, things that you want to share, whether you're a musician or whatever your thing is. Like, I have a friend who's an acrobat, and all her stuff's been cancelled, and I was like, you should teach people to juggle, or online. And she's like, please leave me alone. And but like, find whatever it is that you're doing. People want to see into it, and just have a go. People want to engage, people are interested, and it just be, it's fun for someone else. So
yeah. And how do you go about moderating live chat feeds whilst also creating or playing music to people simultaneously?
What were the chat feeds as they come up? I mean, just, I don't know. To be honest, if it's like a Q&A, then I'm watching it. If I'm singing, then I'm not paying attention that much. But yeah, luckily I haven't had any nasty things said. Yeah, I mean, it's not. Yeah, I find that quite simple.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah, cool. And what's your feeling of your online engagement with your audience now compared to 6 months ago? Do you feel like it's stronger?
Yeah, I mean, like, the followers have gone up significantly. I reckon I've gone up by about 300 followers since the lockdown happened, maybe 400 now. And I guess that's because everyone's at home and they're bored. But also, I am actively putting stuff out there that will then get shared and then will get attention. So yeah, I guess it's shifted my focus onto that, and then you get more followers. So it's it's just yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you have coming up that you want to share with anyone today?
Well, every Wednesday night I'm going to do my open mic night. So at 7 o'clock on my Instagram, I'm going to do open mic night every Wednesday. So next Wednesday, and that's really awesome. And I go live every Friday at midday AEDT on my Facebook. That's the one where I have to think of creative things to do. And if I'm honest, I haven't thought of what I'm doing tomorrow, but it'll be something interesting, I hope. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep present and checking in with people because, yeah, it's an important time to keep connected, I think, in any way.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of opportunity there. Hey,
Yeah.
Thanks, Ali. Hey, Steve, we might throw to you. Steve Hibberd from Small Time Group. I'll unmute you, mate, if you like. Oh, it's not working. Maybe you'll have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Hi.
Hey, Steve. Can you give us a bit of background into you and Small Time Group?
Yeah, sure. So I'm probably a little different on this panel and most things to do with Small Time. I'm a tragic drummer my whole life and played in a whole heap of bands, but none that you would probably ever know unless you came to a little gig of 100 people in a pub 20 years ago. But music's always been sort of the core of my passion, and I guess the other thing that's been at my core is creating things and developing things and really going after ideas. And so over the last nearly 20 years, I've built and sold 3 companies in the technology space. So I built first company here in Australia and sold it pretty quickly, and then second company built up in Asia and lived up in APAC for about 5 years, and sold that and sort of did a startup out of Singapore, and then startup in Delhi, and then bought a company in Mumbai, and then startup in Hong Kong, and then Beijing, and then here, and did that. So spent 5 years doing that and learning like heaps and whatever else. And then the last thing I did is build a company here in Melbourne and then took it to the US and lived in LA for 1.5 years, and then Austin for 3 years, and then sold that company early last year. And so all of those 3 companies have all been in sort of marketing technology. The last one was we sort of went on Facebook's growth journey with them, and very focused on small business, and sort of helping the little guy, and to be able to execute high quality at scale. So we did that, and I guess particularly through the last 4 or 5 years or so, I developed an increasing sort of commitment that once I was through the focus of building that company, I would really try and get back into putting all my energies into music, but try and add value in a different way, using the experiences I've had. And so that led to Small Time. And so Small Time is, core mission of Small Time is really fairly an all-day, pretty big and sort of highly ambitious goal, particularly for some of the people on the panel. But our goal is really to find and develop an efficient way to be able to help early stage artists. And what we're really trying to do, I've sort of taken inspiration from the accelerator model in the technology space, and so really looking at how can we help an early stage artist with that sort of reality check. So number one, really get out and articulate what they would where they'd really like to take their career in an ideal world over a number of years, so beyond the tangible, and really sort of flesh out some things to do with that around what they actually enjoy and what they don't and whatever else. Bring some realities conversations out of that using various resources that I've been able to bring into Small Time to sort of help sanity check that, and then basically sort of try and help an artist understand what it's going to take and the sort of commitment and work that it's going to take to achieve what they'd like to achieve, and sort of so I guess help self-qualify a little better and get to the crux of whether they really do have what it takes within them, independent of the subjective view of their talent. Do they actually have what it takes within them to go after what they're trying to achieve? So spending time doing that, and then really providing some help around crafting around their product. So we built out recording studios here to be able to have basically produce, so reproduce a song they may have already recorded, or work with them on something they haven't recorded, but work with our producer here in our studios and get feedback from someone else and sort of produce a piece of music. And then taking the combination of that time in studio and that time really sort of that career planning time, bring that together in a video asset that can help them articulate to those they're trying to communicate to better around who they are, what they're really trying to get to, what their immediate sort of action plan is, and then be able to integrate that with time with them in the studio, so that they can present themselves and hopefully more effectively sort of get through to some of the people that are really going to make a difference to them going to the next stage. So Small Time is really centered around that. It has three operating units. So there's the artist program, which is what I just described. And so that's we sort of function that out of the top floor of our building. And then the second bit is a hospitality space. So we built a bar and pizza by the slice, inspired by some of my mates in the US from time living over there. And we've got sort of multiple spaces for people to hang out. And then the third part is Small Time TV, which is, I guess, most relevant to this conversation. And so the idea around Small Time TV was to build a live stream studio before COVID-19, but to build a live stream studio within our sort of home base that was integrated with our hospitality space, so it sort of helped with that environment. But the point of the live stream was to integrate performance with telling a story. and for that telling a story to try and sort of impact early stage artists anywhere in the world, as opposed to just those who can get to where we're located in Brunswick. So yeah, so it's really those three things: small time TV, our artist program, and tied together with hospitality, which is really the start of going after a big goal of trying to sort of find a way to be helpful to people that are trying to have a crack.
That's awesome, Steve. And yeah, you're obviously you've been putting so much thought into diversifying income streams, even long before Small Time opened. Now, like, what was your approach pre-COVID-19 to live streaming and these diverse income streams that you have at Small Time compared to now?
Yeah. So part of the model was to be able to have the sort of the activities that we're doing around that are sort of core to our mission, so that for those to be quite altruistic, so that we're basically there's not a big barrier to come into Small Time and sort of avail yourself of what we're doing. And so basically there's three parts to the business, and so there's commerciality around Small Time TV and revenue, simply, and then there's obviously revenue via the hospitality part of the business. And then, there's been some small revenue to do with our artist program, but we're probably going to remove that going forward. But having multiple income streams and then doing it out of a base, doing it in a way that meant there's low overheads, really so that it was a really sustainable business, not distracted by finance too much. Which is a luxury, and I've spent my last 20 years highly distracted by finance and raising money and continually trying to keep everyone sort of believing that it's all right, the losses will go away and we'll get to profit and we'll get to value and we'll do all this sort of stuff. So I wanted Small Time to be not distracted too much by that, but to be quite sustainable and be able to be pretty altruistic around the core mission. Yeah. In terms of pre and post, we took we took a stance of shutting down fairly early. I guess my view was the quickest way to get through this was for everyone to sort of lock down and try and flatten the curve as quickly as possible. It's amazing how quickly this whole world we're living in moves, with 2 press conferences or 3 press conferences a day and lots of doing. So where we've got to with like an updated view of the world is this going to hang around for longer and restrictions will be in for some time and that sort of thing. And so we've had to get creative. And so it's been actually really positive for us. We've been able to sort of get behind some of the great streaming stuff that's going on. Emily and Leigh to do with Isolate out of here. And then obviously supporting Leigh on Delivered Live has been awesome. But we've got a great sort of production team in here and equipment and capability. And so we're working on some pretty exciting sort of ideas with different people in the industry, and also been doing a whole lot of sort of further planning around our artist program, and which we could have done with that time. So we've been doing that, and I think coming out of this period, we'll probably be we'll sort of have a strategy of having Small Time TV be fairly sacred as a product associated with our brand. We'll try and a live streaming product. We'll have our production crew and our capability there trying to commercialise that, sort of independent of Small Time TV, but aligned with our mission. And then do some different things around the hospitality piece. And then there's some, potential other things we could do as well. But I guess it's provided us a good time of planning. It's also allowed us to, I guess, be creative around income and get to know some different stakeholders in the industry we hadn't previously. So there's a lot of positives for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been there's a quick emergence of leaders in this space. Like, yeah, Leigh with Delivered Live, and obviously Isolate as well, which you have you're playing in, which is cool. You said you're speaking to a few other people in the industry about future.
Yep.
What would you say your prediction is for what live streaming could look like in a couple of months? What can we look forward to in an ideal world?
I guess the themes that are driving us, which are again subjective, they're our ideas, but I mean they're our beliefs as opposed to ideas. I think what this period has accelerated is a desire from I guess fans, people who love an artist's music, to even further get to know them more holistically. There's a real desire for transparency and sort of understanding who Ali is more holistically, as opposed to just Ali I see when she's performing or in those set environments. And so I think the core marketing capability, the core marketing strategy of telling stories will become even more and more important. And so I think streaming will just there's been a lot of very lo-fi streaming activity that's been going on by people who haven't done much of that before. And so I think it'll as much as all of us will want to get out, I think there will be probably a sustained uplift in people viewing and sort of experiencing music and everything surrounding that online. And I also think that it'll be broader than performance. It'll be around telling stories to do with sort of discovering new artists and sort of realizing you like them for sort of holistic reasons, as well as loving their music. I think that sort of trend is probably what will continue, and that'll And then I guess the other theme for us that we sort of believe is, and it's very much our goal. We think that there's standards like quality. So there's a lot of Instagram Live and things like that, which will stay there. I think driven by those platforms, as well as just this level of engagement you get as a content creator. I think there'll be an absolute trend towards improved quality of streaming and quality of production. So and I think the engagement will come from the storytelling and so on, as opposed to the engagement coming from the sort of lo-fi sort of quality. So I guess there's some of the things we're thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. That was great to hear all that intel. Hey, Dom, might throw to you now. If you want to...
there we go. Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Do you want to give us some background into you, Dom, and what you do at Sounds Australia?
Sure. So I'm the digital export producer for Sounds Australia. So our model revolves around the two main things that you cannot do right now, which is events and international travel. So our plan for the year has obviously dramatically shifted. I've spoken on a couple of these, I've spoken to a couple of people about live streaming, which I find really funny because my claim to fame is that I have organised a live streaming event only for it to completely fall apart. So I've never actually done a live streaming event in my life because 3 days after we announced an event, the Victorian state government announced a state of emergency, which put the kibosh on our event, which was going to happen at Bakehouse Studios in Melbourne, which was something that we had organised in the wake of the cancellation of South by Southwest. Which it's crazy to think that was 6 weeks ago, and just how much, the world has changed since then. And at that point, when South by got cancelled, which was a Saturday our time, the Sounds Australia team, we all got on the phone and we were like, okay, how can we support the artists? Because ultimately, you know, we'll be fine. It's the artists and the managers and their teams that we're most concerned about. So 2 days later, on the Monday, we decided that we were going to put on a live stream event called 3 for the Stream. We're going to have 3 songs by 19 artists across 3 stages. At that point, we knew 0 about putting on a live stream event. So in the space of 5 days, I learned how to put on a live stream event. We announced it on the Friday with 19 acts. On the Monday, we had to cancel it. So that was that was a little bit disappointing, to say the least. But, you know, for obvious reasons. And you know, right now, I'm, you know, it's so amazing seeing artists, you know, get on the front foot and start to do so much live streaming. And right now, you know, it's not quite our place to step into the live streaming realm. You know, like Leigh said, you know, international travel is further down the track. You know, artists aren't going to be thinking about export, at least in that traditional sense, for a while. So, you know, we're playing a bit more of a behind the scenes role at the moment. Obviously, things are developing and changing all the time. So we're monitoring everything and we'll adjust our strategy as, you know, as things change and evolve.
Yeah, totally. I can only imagine how many cancellations you've had to cop on your itinerary for the rest of the year. In your contacts with like all of the international showcases and international tours, what are the global feelings behind live streaming now as a response to all of these cancellations?
You know, I think it was a response from creatives, because creatives just want to create, you know, they want to do things, they want to be proactive. Like Ali mentioned before, it's like, just want to make things. You know, particularly from the global live music industry is in tatters. Like it's hard to overstate just how dire the situation is. And we don't know what it's going to look like out of the back of this. We don't know who's going to survive. We don't know what form the live music industry is going to take. So live streaming at the moment is a way for artists to create, for people who put on events to put on events. There's a lot of feeling out what people want and how the best way to do it is. You've also got, you know, you've got people creating art who, you know, some people rightly want to get paid for that. Other people are doing it as a more promotional aspect. And I think the desires of the audience will also play and like have an influence on how people stream and what that looks like. So I think right now, while everybody's at home, it's like, let's just try it. And that's what, you know what, that's been super exciting. It's like people are like, bugger it, let's give it a go. And I think that nature, the real DIY creative nature of it has something that I've found incredibly inspiring. Like I love Ali's model of the open mic night on Instagram. I thought that was just complete genius. I love that people are making like virtual nightclubs in Zoom. It's like, it's brilliant. And it's experiences that you can't have in you can't have in the real world. I know the internet is real, but anyway, you know what I mean? Like these are experiences that you couldn't have in a nightclub, you couldn't have at a normal gig setting. So I think what has been, to use the word again, what I found really inspiring about this moment are people are creating brand new experiences for the audience, and the audience is really coming on board with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You have spoken about this concept before, live streaming as an alternative to live music, not a replacement of live shows. what are some cool ideas that you've seen online or like around the globe of people delivering that really unique experience in live streaming that you couldn't get at a show?
One that I really love, which I didn't actually see, and obviously not everybody can do this, but Erykah Badu has been doing live streams where people would pay, I think it was $1 for entry the first time. It was $2 the second time. And what you could do is you could request songs and request which room in her house that she played the song. And as the live stream went on, people realized that depending on which room she was in her house, that would influence the style in which she would play the song. And so you then had people requesting that she would play this song in this room, because if she was in this room, then it would be like a bossa nova version of this song. And like that, you could never do. You can never do that at an Erykah Badu show. I'm basically a daily watcher of Questlove's DJ sets. Questlove is jumping on, it's like Instagram Live, Twitch, and Facebook, and maybe Periscope to the 3 people who still use that app. And each DJ set is themed, but the man has such incredible knowledge of music that it's basically just like a 5-hour music class. And he'll talk over songs and he'll be like, this bass player who played on this record from 1977, who of course Questlove just happens to know, and tells all these great stories. And so, you know, someone like Questlove, being able to use his knowledge and just his great kind of raconteur skills to be able to have that daily entertainment. And something that he's doing as well, which we might touch on a little bit later, is that I've noticed that he has a number that people can text. I think what's really interesting about this time is that everybody's in their homes, so you have a captive audience, but that audience still kind of belongs to the platform, all right? So it's like, if you've got likes on Facebook or you got followers on Instagram, if Facebook and Instagram or Twitter or Twitch or whatever falls over tomorrow, you lose all of those fans. So I think as an artist, like what Questlove, my guess is what he's doing is by texting him, he now knows who's a Questlove fan. So when this is over, he has a whole contact list of people that he can directly contact. It might be like, hey, we got a new Roots record, or hey, I'm going on tour, or hey, Fallon is starting up, so, you know, here's where we'll be playing. And so I think that is really smart, because he's realizing he's got a captive audience. You've got, you know, I think he's having between like 2,000 and 3,000 people tuning in a day. You get a bunch of them to text you every day. You then own those contacts and you own that data. So I think for artists, you know, now is a good time to start thinking. You've got to be thinking about ideas, like creative ideas for this moment. You have to start thinking about what happens in the future, because this isn't how it's always going to be. Like, whatever the future world looks like, there will be a point where we can step outside our doors. There will be a point where we'll be able to play public shows again of whatever size. So when that happens, will you have that list of fans who loved you on Facebook Live or loved you on Twitch, who you can then straight away hit up and go, hey, guess what? I'm playing a show. And then they've engaged with you, they've connected with you, they like your music, they like you as an artist. You have a ticketed show, they'll come and buy a ticket.
Totally. They are such good thoughts, Dom. That actually, yeah, I've been having a look at the new streaming initiatives that are popping up, but you're probably much more adept in it than I. What is the latest in free-to-play and ticketed streaming platforms?
Look, there's heaps of them, and it changes. Like it changes every time. Like it moves so fast, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah. When this all started, and it still is to an extent, like everyone was jumping on Instagram Live because it was the easiest one to do, right? Like you could literally press a button and then you're going live. And I would open up the Instagram app and it'd be like 12 people going live at that moment. And I think the early adopters and the people who do it really well, they're going to keep those fans. If you were trying to come in now, you might be playing in like a crowded field. Twitch has become really popular. I mean, Twitch has always been hugely popular in the gaming space, but it's starting to become more popular in the music space. And I think the ability to be able to, you know, tip creators and pay creators on that platform has drawn musicians to it. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, they're still there, but I think they require a certain level of technology, which a lot of people aren't just going to have access to at home, or just aren't confident enough yet to give it a go. There's a few more steps. There are some there's some platforms like Stage It, and there's a whole bunch where you can, you know, where you can buy tickets for entry into a live stream, or you kind of do a bit of a mishmash of both, like Leigh is doing with Delivered Live, which I think which is fantastic. It's like you can buy a ticket through not Eventbrite. Leigh will correct me where you can buy from. Just go to Delivered Live, the website, and you can watch it through YouTube. So you've got you know, you've kind of got a melding of platforms there. But I think kind of moving forward, once we can have a few more people in a room together, I think that's going to change the nature of live streaming as well, because, you know, you'll be able to have a few more cameras, you'll be able to up the quality. But I think what people will still need to think about is why someone would watch a live stream versus why wouldn't somebody just go watch a live clip of yours on YouTube? You know, I think a lot of it has to do with the community engagement and that ability to communicate and be, you know, close to an artist, which is something you just can't do at a show. You can't just walk up to them and start talking to them. You can, but, you know, you might get booted out of the venue or something. So yeah, I think that there are so many multiple platforms. I think as an artist, it's good to put yourself in the mindset of a fan and of what you want, and just keep an eye on how those things are evolving and changing.
Can I just comment on the ticketing? So we ticketed via Oztix, Australian independent ticket company. They've set up for us basically where it's an opt-in to pay a booking fee. And surprisingly enough, we sold more booking fees last week than we did tickets to the show. So basically they've put it, when you go onto the site, it tells you where the booking fee would normally go. They've had 96 staff that they've had to lay off. They're a business that basically they had revenue coming in, that revenue stopped. They have 100 staff to run shows. In, you know, festival time, they employ maybe 300 people. So they've created something to help them because they cannot get through without the support and things happening through ticketing. I think the other side of that is the importance of why we've gone for a ticketed and a live stream approach. Is obviously one of the things is at the moment, you know, not everyone can afford to see a show and everyone should have access to the enjoyment of live music. But what we're hoping is that those people that can afford jump on and buy a ticket. We're hoping that those lovely record company people who have been on door lists for the last 20 years actually jump on and finally buy a ticket to a show. But it allows that cross between the both of them. I think from an artist's point of view, and funnily enough, one of the things that my brother and I are talking about at the moment is building up that platform where you can create your own data. And, you know, whether you do it through a ticketing company where you're sharing that data is really important. I think artists for a long time have built, in the creative industries for a long time, have built a lot of massive organisations and created content and then lost their fans after. So finding ways where you can have access to that information so you can have that direct contact is really important. I think the paid gigs, you know, again, I look down to my left like the Brady Bunch at Peter Bay and Hogg. What they're doing at Mimo with paid gigs, the Kate Sobrano one was an absolute cracker of an event, shows that people do want to pay for content. When it's important to describe why you're doing it. It's important to let people know of, you know, we just, and I say this to all the artists out there, and especially Ali, in the nicest possible way. For a long time, our creative people get taken advantage of, and they're such giving. Artists are so giving that they think of everything, and sometimes they miss out on those opportunities. I think it's important to say, well, you know, everyone else, when I go to work and do something or create a product, I'm in free press, so I do give it away for free, but I get advertised to pay for it. And just explaining to say, hey, you know, this song didn't just get made yesterday. I invested in it, created an album, created that. So I'm sharing with this. So if you can pay, it'll be great if you can be part of that. You know, it's such an important thing. And I go back to that, just looking what our creative industries did during the bushfires and what we gave up and how much money we generated. The other side of the situation at the moment is to get on to, and I'm sure Sound Australia Music Victoria can share the contact to your local MP, because there still has not been a proper arts funding. We need hundreds of millions of dollars, not tens of millions of dollars to help fund it. But yeah, that's my little piece. But jump on to Oztix, Dom, talking about our competitors. Come on, help a brother out here.
Sorry, mate.
But yeah, Oztix have been really good. And what they're doing at the moment is, you know, for those people that want to look at doing a show, that ability to not have to pay a booking fee and choose to, it's people get shitty about booking fees, but it does pay the staff, and it's what the ticking up these earn. That makes a big difference. So if you're doing a small show that you only want to charge $5 or $6 at, you know, it's only just the credit card fee and so forth, because I know PayPal costs a little bit as well.
And like, that's what I've loved about Delivered Live, is that it's shown that people will pay for a live streaming event that they can see the value in as well. Like, I think if you're going to go and just film a live stream on your phone, it might be a little harder to get people to pay for that. We're also a culture where tipping is not in our culture. So unlike in America, for example, where you do have that, I think it's a little bit harder it could be a little bit harder to get Australian audiences to tip. However, Delivered Live has shown that if you give people something that has value, people are willing to pay for it. And that's not me saying that what I'm saying is, it's like, that's an experience that is worth paying for. And so I think that is a really inspiring model, and should inspire artists and managers and people in the industry that there is a public who are willing to pay for a live stream event. Now the ball then is in your court to come up with a great idea that is worth them paying money for.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like, live streaming on social media has always been around. It was kind of a bit of a niche strategy for artists and also organizations and festivals and stuff. But now it's like an essential offering. And it's obviously in development as it's leading the charge. Why do you think, Dom, that it never truly took off before, live streaming?
I think because it's weird. Like, I think Ali mentioned it before. It is it's very strange. Like, even here, it's kind of, it's an odd experience talking to a camera. And so I think for a lot of people, they just weren't comfortable with it. I think there probably wasn't value seen in it. And some of the major platforms, there's a few steps to go through it. I think people thought of live streaming with more, you needed cameras, you needed switches, you needed encoders, you needed the space. And possibly the audience just wasn't there for it either. Like, Instagram Live was there as a function and people were using it, but possibly the audience didn't really want to see an artist just playing on their phone with kind of like so-so quality.
I think too, Dom, do you think maybe that also other people were doing that for artists? So, you know, you can't go to a concert without 50 billion people holding up the phone, filming the artist and putting that up. So it was a bit of a cluttered space. And I don't know whether Ali would attest to this, but I think also, you know, for a lot of the artists I've got, when you mention it, they're like, oh, the sound quality and this, they've got no control over what's coming out at the other end. And I think you know, from an artist point of view, that's a real issue of just not knowing what's out there, and you're being judged on something that you've got no control over, the internet speed, the crackling, and it's, you know, even with I was watching Isolade, and, you know, one of my favourite artists who my wife works with, Marlon Williams, most beautiful voice in the world, but he had internet problems, and people were screaming at him via the message, Marlon, you've got to fix your internet. It's like, he doesn't control the internet. It's like, it's just what it is. And that, I think that for a lot of artists meant it's been something that, hey, do I want to put something out there where I have no control? Maybe Ali could comment on that.
Ali, I've just unmuted you.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crap, and I am over that. I mean, I've gotten over that now, and I think we're at a place now where people just appreciate it, but it is not great. Like, it's like any gig. If you play a gig in a venue and the sound isn't great, you feel a bit shit afterwards, you know. So sorry if I swore, so yeah, I mean, I think it's been touched on that, like, people want to engage with the human being, and that's what I try to do. I know it's going to sound bad, but it's more about it's an intimate experience, and they're going to see your personality and your character, and that's going to win them over more than the sound. If they know your songs already, and it's a different experience, and just accept that and go with it, like. Yeah.
And I also think social media and music streaming had become such an individual experience. Everything was personalized. It's like, here's my personalized feed. Here's my algorithmically generated playlist. Like, we've become so used to experiencing things through our phones that were just for us. And then all of a sudden we were all inside and we couldn't see anyone. And that human connection that we were used to having was gone. And then all of a sudden, an artist went live, and you would log on, and there was 400 people all watching at the same time. And there was this kind of rush of, like, I'm part of something with other humans. I'm not alone. I think that was a really major thing, and I think still is, and will be for quite some time, when we can't be part of a crowd. And for all the personalization, all the algorithms, we are ultimately social beings. You can't take that away. And so I think something about Instagram Live, something about live streaming, about seeing a chat, it's just so primal. It's just part of being a community. It's part of connecting with humans.
Can I give you something else that I think is two great things that I think will come out of this? One is the hope that the first gig that we go to, when we get it, nobody pulls their phones out because they're sick of being on their phones, and they actually look at the amazing people on the stage doing their wares. The second thing is, I've got 3 little boys who sort of know what we do but don't know. So they've been sitting watching Delivered Live and seeing a live gig and getting appreciation for why their mum and dad are so caught up in the music scene and talk about it all the time. And that's the other thing that I found exciting about this, and I hope that we can do it, is that when I grew up, I got to see, you know, AC/DC on Countdown. I got to see all of those things. And our kids now just see music videos that sometimes I prefer they haven't seen. But being able to see that live thing has given them a connection. So last week, watching Hayley Mary, my wife sent me a picture of our son Frankie sitting on the couch with a guitar, playing it and making up a song. Like, that's an amazing thing to me. And that's why I hope that this will, one of the things that it introduces a broader variety of music, and kids to be able to see that there's reality to, not just an algorithmic, unless they can sit and watch it with their family. And as Henry keeps saying, you get to watch it with your dog or cat as well. What a time.
Yeah. And you're so right. And gaming has been, I feel like gaming has done that really well. Like, gamers jumped on live streaming really early with Twitch, and that's been a great platform for them. And there's been that there's been that communal element of gaming while you're sitting at home. And so if a positive out of all of this tragedy can be that music becomes a communal thing at home and then encourages people to have that experience in the, like, at a venue as well, that'd be really great. Because, like, you know, one of the things I lament is that there's not as many, like, underage shows anymore. Like, I got to see Grinspoon at the Southern Entertainment Centre in 1997. And so I had an experience, like, I could experience live music growing up. Like you mentioned, there was, you know, live music on TV as well. Hopefully now there's a younger generation coming up watching these artists playing, going, damn, I want to do that, or I want to go see that. I want to be a part of it.
Dom, thank you very much. And Peter Bainhog and everyone else, Dom's claiming it. I'm taking the idea, but I'm now going to do the delivered live underage show, because that's a really good point. Like in Victoria, we only have a certain amount of venues that we've been able to de-license and do an all ages show. And it is the access for younger people to that have not been enough. So I think that's a really good point. And maybe that's something that, you know, we can create through, you know, other platforms, maybe like House Party or something like that, to be able to create underage events where kids can at least get together with groups of other friends and watch the bands that they love, because, you know, there's an inability to do those things. That's a really well done, Dom. But Steve, can you paint that idea and we'll quickly get it sorted out and lock that in?
Well, or there's a platform where it basically just locks out all of us oldies, and you could only let in people under 18.
Yeah, like I think it's a really important thing. You know, it's one of the things that I think of through all of this, of just talking to being with your kids and being able to talk to them more, and talking about when you were kids, because that's what you're talking about, and when they were kids, and did we ever have anything like this? These are things that, you know, we us oldies maybe take for granted, that we were able to see all these bands, you know, that you were able to see Midnight Oil for $1 at La Trobe University, and there was 10,000 kids there. That's just not as accessible. The other thing that I really hope from this too is that, you know, a couple of things that are going to come out of it, to go back to what you were saying about touring, just to give you how it's going to affect the artists. So in the last 24 hours, two of the biggest world touring companies have basically said that they're going to cut $500 million from their budget, that they will also now reduce guarantees for all artists playing, and potentially that they will look at giving a fee structure based on a percentage of tickets sold. So you will go in at this and you'll get this, but then if you get to this amount, you'll get this pay. If you get to this amount of tickets sold, that you get this pay. There's all of the festivals that, in speaking to some of the overseas agents in the last 48 hours, most of the festivals are dedicated to keeping the same lineup next year that they would have had this year, which means for a lot of artists that changes the whole platform with regard to release schedules and having those key moments on festivals. We're not going to be able to do that. So from a release point of view, I've got a band, Vacations, who released a single today, and I've got an album coming out, and we've planned a lot around Reeperbahn and other festivals, which means now that will have to completely change. The guarantee situation is going to be an interesting one of how that plays out for the smaller artists, because especially for those that are touring the US for the first time and might get a Bottle Rock or a Hangout Festival, or that, you know, that $1,500 guarantee, you know, means a difference between playing, because at least you know you're going to make that. With that not being there, it's a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder for Australian acts to think about that anymore. So those are the big things I think that we'll see in changes, of just there'll be a lot less guarantees going around for shows. And, you know, a lot of there's, especially I spoke to a couple of agents in the US in the last 48 hours, and, you know, the US is very patriotic. So, you know, for big bands that are going to sell tickets, yes, but for a lot of other promoters, they're like, we're going to support our own first, and, you know, which is natural. And I hope here that happens as well, that, you know, that festivals start to look at maybe an 80-20 mix of 80% local, and that, so that we can, you know, get our industry up and going by supporting each other through that time. But it'll be an interesting one to watch.
I just wanted to quickly jump in on something you were saying, Dom. I think and you know, you were asking Ash around what will come out of this, you know, whenever that is and however that happens. I think that one huge positive is that there's been an uplift in consumption of the live stream channels by consumers. So people are getting used to sort of how they work. And I think as we start to get out and the ability for people to be able to perform live again, everyone's going to want that physical experience as soon as they can get it in a safe way. But I do think the streaming opportunity will continue, and it'll be around but it'll sort of transform from that early desperation for performance to more sort of creative, engaging ways of live streaming, where you're letting the fan base into, your songwriting process, or you're letting, there's collaboration sort of that occur that can't happen in a live event. So I think we'll get more. There's lots of things being tried right now, which is awesome, and some of those will settle in to become like staples of live streaming going forward, and they'll augment sort of what happens in live venues. And I reckon that'll be a real positive for artists and for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be great to see how this shapes the recovery and the future of live music. A point, Dom, that you had, or that everyone's really had, is that community is really driving live streaming right now, the need for that social connection, and the financial or business model is kind of trying to grow around that. And a big part of that is licensing. And Amy, we haven't heard from you yet. I'm sorry about that. If you'd like to jump in now and give us some background into what you do at APRA AMCOS, and maybe some licensing info on the various music concerts, but also non-commercial streams on social media as well as commercial ones.
Yeah, sure. This has been such a great chat. I almost feel bad for delving into music licensing. Okay, so yeah, I work at APRA AMCOS, which is the organisation that looks after writers and composers, and makes sure that creators get paid for the use of their music. So my role is in digital licensing, and that's wherever businesses are using music in their online platforms, and live streaming falls within that remit. It's certainly something that we've been doing for a while with live streaming, but it's exploded recently, as you can imagine. And so have the queries, obviously, that are coming in about what people can and can't do. So yeah, we've discussed kind of already the massive spike in, I guess, social media live streaming, so Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. For artists, it's great to note that you can absolutely go ahead and do your live streams on these platforms, and you'll be covered by our existing agreements with those companies. So you don't need additional licensing. Now, this is on the premise that you're not charging for that live stream, and that does include donations. And the reason for this is that we look after the songwriters. So we need to make sure that they're getting paid whenever you're performing those works. And those could be your own works, or they could be someone else's works, either via having a co-writer or doing a cover song. The thing about APRA is when you become a member, you give the rights to your works for us to license on your behalf. And you can take those back at any time if you want. It's called a license back. It's an online form on our website. But if you don't do that, you've asked for us to collect. So that's what we're seeking to do. The great news right now is that in respect of social media, we're actually going to be asking artists to submit set lists for their live streams on these platforms. And we're going to look at how we can try and distribute some money to those set lists, because obviously artists aren't getting live performances at a venue right now. So we want to make sure that writers are still getting paid, however possible. So bear with us, because we're kind of dealing with all this in real time, and these processes usually take ages to work out. So know that it's happening, it's in the pipeline, and our writer services team will absolutely reach out to our members when we know the exact process. Things that are being worked out, obviously, how much will get paid and when this will get paid. So that's with social media, the other really great thing we're doing at the moment is like trying to help businesses with live streaming. And this is often concert promoters, like for Delivered Live. And so we really sought to make it easier for these, businesses to continue to be able to stream live concerts. So we brought our rates down significantly, just to make sure we're bringing in more and more licensees, because the more licensees we have, the more money we can pay out. I guess the difference is, well, one difference is that when we license a business, we're asking them to report the works that were streamed on the service. When artists, they perform in a live venue, it's their responsibility to submit live performance reports. So kind of the difference there is that we're actually getting the business to do it. And so whatever license fees we're collecting, we'll be distributing out to the works that were reported to us. Other kind of examples that, might pop up that we're seeking to license, there's a few subscription live stream services. So you might pay a monthly fee and get access to whatever they're live streaming. Or there's ones that just operate on a regular basis and they, sell tickets to the live stream. So we license them as well. We have an ongoing license with them, and the difference, if it's a one-off, we'll just have a one-off license kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of licensing. Happy to answer any questions, more specific questions if you like.
Thanks, Amy. That was really helpful. Someone has a question in the chat feed. As an artist, I need to purchase a licensing fee to perform my own original songs on a live stream. Is that right?
So not on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, providing that it's one of those things that exists in the terms and conditions. So when you become an APRA member, you've given your rights for us to license. But if it's on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, we've already got that covered by our license agreements. If it's on another platform that's not currently licensed by us, so there's like livestream.com, Vimeo, lots of other ones out there, you would usually need to get a license from us. But because you're performing your own works, just send us an email, or we will probably tell you to do a license back, but we can certainly try and streamline that as much as possible for you. I should also note, if you're not registered with AMCOS and you're a writer, you write songs or you compose, make sure you sign up, because if you're not signed up, we can't pay you.
Good point. Someone had an earlier question, which you may have already covered, Amy, but whether artists should be paying license fees to perform covers on live streams.
Again, it really depends on the platform. Okay. So if it's social media right now, you're good to go, as long as you're not charging for it. But if it's an unlicensed platform, like your own website or Vimeo, livestream.com, there's a heap of them out there. You do need to seek a license so that the writers of those works that you're covering can get paid.
And so artists can just contact the writer services team at APRA directly for any other questions they have?
I'd say if it's to do with live stream, you can email online at apra.com.au and my team will help you out.
Great, thanks, Amy. We've got 10 minutes left, so anyone listening in, you can shoot through a question on the chat feed that you'd like anyone to answer. Any panelists have any leftover burning thoughts they want to share? Dom.
I feel like I'm back at school. I'm just going to chuck into... Wait, there we go. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Let's see if I do. So I've just chucked into the chat. There's a really fantastic writer and journalist, Sherry Hu, from the States, who you should check out her writing anyway. She does a really great newsletter called Music and Water. She writes a lot about the convergence between music and tech. She's put together this great Google Doc, kind of a how-to guide for live streaming, talking about different platforms. So I've chucked that link in the chat. So I would highly recommend everyone go and check it out. I know you asked before, Ash, that question of the different platforms, and there are so many, and Sherry covers off a whole bunch of them in that Google Doc. So yeah,
Awesome.
that link should work. Otherwise, if you just Google like Sherry Who virtual music guide, it should come up.
Awesome. Thanks, Dom. Hey, Amy, I don't know if we got to it, but in the electronic world, how are DJs impacted with this, with licensing music for live stream?
Cool. Yeah, look, one of the things that DJs struggle with is that they're using sound recordings. So with any song, there's basically two sets of rights. You've got the musical work, which is from what the songwriters create, and then you've got the sound recording, so what's recorded. We at APRA AMCOS only license the copyright musical work. So whenever I'm talking about that you can go ahead on Facebook, Instagram, etc., I'm only talking in respect of APRA AMCOS licensed repertoire. The social media platforms all run content ID or music recognition technology over their live streams, which means if sound recordings are picked up, they're going to get blocked after a certain number of them. And that's because a lot of these services aren't licensed as a pure music service. They accept that there's music on these services, but they're what we call general entertainment, more or less. So that comes down from the directions of the record labels, basically, of what rights they're prepared to give. So the problem, the real problem that DJs, unfortunately, they come up against is the sound recording side. And with music recognition technology, that's what it's picking up on, is the sound recording.
Nice. Dom, I just checked out that link. That's super helpful. Leigh and then Steve, go for it.
I was just going to say too, one of the other things when we're talking about community is that one of the issues the music industry has faced for a long time is we've always thought we're competing against each other for audience, when really we're competing against, the gaming industry or the sports or action sports or betting or gambling and everything like that. So one of the important things as a community coming together is share the bejesus out of everybody that's doing that. Watch our show, watch Isolate, watch Ali, share the stuff you're doing. If you see another artist doing it, share it through your socials. Actually look after each other as a community, because we are a small ecosystem that needs to support each other. We're not competing unless someone's doing something at the same time you are. If you see an artist that you like that's doing something, share it with your entire social community. That's what's going to help, because it's an area where sport and gaming do it a lot better than we do. So it's one thing that can really help, and it's really important that as a creative industry, we support each other. So, doing that, I think, if you watch us, share the Memo Hall. If you see, as I said, Ali, Alex, anybody that's doing anything, you see it, share it, because it drives people and works good for everyone, because it gets everyone thinking about music and thinking about coming back and watching your stream.
Great point. Steve, did you?
I was just going to ask Dom whether you've seen anything, obviously not commercially the same significance, but off the back of all the shutdowns, has there been anything that's for Aussie artists from an export perspective to do with live stream, with things that are organised overseas, or anything that's come up as new opportunities? Or
I've seen, I think it's Beatport, who have done some kind of live stream festivals on Twitch that have had Australian artists involved. So I think Rufus de Sol was involved. Flight Facilities might be on the next one. I have seen Australian artists streaming from like the accounts of like their American record labels or things like that. I guess, you know, I guess with the internet, everything is global. So everything is is an export opportunity in a way. But yeah, I have seen artists getting involved with, I guess, live stream events organized from international companies. If you want to we can call them international events for the sake of this.
Well, and I guess because of the international audience skew maybe of those accounts or those festivals, it may be exposing the Australian artists to a different audience than what they would get organically.
Totally, yeah, 100%. There was something when Leigh was talking about kind of promoting other events and that community element. I think it might be in Seattle, where there's like a collective of artists who have come together who are all live streaming events, and they're basically promoting each other's events because as everyone here would know, there's just so much live streaming going on that it's really hard to surface exactly what's going on unless you're like clued in. So I think Leigh's kind of touched on something, and something I'd love to see more of is like these kind of collectives. I feel like a socialist saying this, but like these collectives coming together and promoting various live stream events so it can surface it to different audiences, and you share audiences, and therefore you grow the fan bases of various artists.
Right.
But Steve, I think, yeah, I think we might start to see some more Australian artists, I hope so, getting involved with like international organizations. Actually today, Cal and Mai live streamed from the Music Matters Instagram account, and Music Matters, for those of you who don't know, is a music conference in Singapore that generally happens every September. So I think they're going back through artists who have showcased at that conference previously, and they're going to be doing live sets on their Instagram account. So that's really cool. Annie Hamilton did something the other day for maybe her American label. Courtney Barnett collaborating with Lucius happened a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it's happening.
And Leigh as well, because I know I've talked to you about this, Leigh, but also Dom. Have you seen live stream used for any? I mean, a lot of the plans for South by visits also involve a lot of meetings with prospective, new partners and things, new team members and so on in the US. Have you seen live stream used for any sort of presentations or meetings or various things for artists here, in the US or anywhere?
I think like it hasn't, but it's something that coming off the back of this that, I'm looking up for my artists with regard to, a couple of them are looking for US deals. We're going through new publishing and so forth of what we can do to actually, everyone's a bit more used to it. People are at home and now, so we're looking at doing potentially for one artist doing a little live performance with different publishing houses just via that to get them to log in. But I definitely think it's something that's going to be used. It is definitely something. I'd like to thank everybody. I've got to sign off. I've got family in the background, and it's been but I will see you all soon. I'll see you watching Delivered Live and commenting on and doing it. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Ash.
Thanks, Leigh. You've been awesome. Thanks so much for all your advice. Look forward to this weekend. It's actually 7:00 already. So, it's been real. Thanks, everyone. All the speakers, round of applause. If everybody would like to, how should we do this? Everyone's surely got the links to Small Time, Sounds Australia, Delivered Live, Ali Barter's pages, and everyone knows APRA AMCOS. So continue to collaborate and support each other. Stay tuned to the Music Victoria website and Facebook page. We've got lots of resources that are being uploaded every day, and we might put together something around live streaming, the commercial avenues and non-commercial stuff, and just some topics based on this convo. This session was also recorded, so it will be available on our Facebook page in the videos section if you'd like to refer back.
Thanks, Ash.
Thanks, Ash.
Thank you.
Guys. See you.
See you guys.